Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Here in Medina Wadi, Georgia, Jumpstarting Seeds officially begins February 15th, and that's roughly 8 weeks before our last frost date. So I grab my egg carton, cut it down the middle, and I keep both halves. The top half is the tray that catches the excess water because I'm going to puncture holes right through the bottom, right here, for drainage. You don't want the water to collect and gather in the egg cartons, because if it does, then your seeds will drown. And if your seeds drown, well, they won't sprout. I'll puncture holes in all of the cartons, and then I'll get started making my mix. For my mix, I have a really big bowl, and it probably holds about 2 gallons. And I'll fill it with 1/3 bag of potting mix. And potting mix is different than potting soil. So take care that when jumpstarting seeds, you use jumpstarting mix and not soil. Cinnamon. Why? Because seedlings can contract diseases. Have you ever heard of dampening off? If so, leave me a comment about it, and we'll talk about that some other time, inshallah. But to avoid diseases, always use some kind of preventative. In my case, I like to use ground cinnamon. To my 2-gallon bowl of potting mix, I'll add about 4 heaping tablespoons of cinnamon, and that's probably too much. But I like to be safe than sorry. I really try to avoid damping off disease. So I'll mix the dry ingredients, and to that I'll add about just less than half a gallon of water, and I'll just make sure that I stir it until the consistency is that of a wet sponge, usually more or less. And you know you're at the right consistency because it should kind of drop off the stirring utensil. The water should not puddle too badly in the mixture. We're going to go ahead and fill up the egg cartons and get started on the larger seeds. But I want you to keep in mind that although February 15th is our official start date for most of our seeds, we usually wait until March to jumpstart larger seeds. Because this is a jumpstarting video, we compile both techniques. However, the upcoming technique is typically done at a later date, usually by the end of March. Now I'm going to get started on the bigger seeds. For that you need starter cups, dirt, and cinnamon. Puncture your holes in your cup so that the water doesn't sit. Fill it up about 2/3 full with either garden soil, which is just soil from out of your garden, that's what I use, topsoil, or potting soil. Leave a little top space in there because that's where the seed starting mix and the seed is going to go. Fill up all your cups. When you're finished filling up your cups, grab a bowl and a spoon. Grab your seed starting mix, your water, your cinnamon, and mix those things together just like you did before. Then you want to grab your spoon, take a heaping scoop of your mixture, put it on the top of the dirt where you left that empty space. Remember that this is where the seed is going to germinate, and then the roots will extend down into the soil. You want the seed to germinate in this potting mixture and not in the soil. So after that, we'll go ahead and get started planting our seeds. Planting is super easy. Here I have my tomato seeds, and these are just some regular tomato seeds, my paper, and my pencil, and I'm going to label. Always label, because you don't want to get confused when it comes to plants. Different plants grow in different sizes. For example, if you were to plant some cherry tomatoes, they would not be as big as a big boy variety. For me, I usually plant the same tomato, so I just put tomato on there, and then I put it right here on the flat. I usually just secure it right to that flap so it doesn't get wet. And that's about it. I write down the date as well, just because I like to know when I started, which is basically the same. Add some tape, tape it down, and I can finally get to planting after I do this. With my seeds, I just shake them out right in the palm of my hand. I'll just grab a few. These seeds I've saved for about 1 year, so germination rate on them should be pretty good. I'd say about 9 out of 10. Smooth out my mixture there, and I put my seeds right down and cover them with about as much dirt as they are big, and I hope that makes sense. And I'll do that with all of these cells. Sometimes I'll take more than one seed and I'll put it in the cell, 2 or even 3, but the problem occurs when the plants all germinate. Then you would have to worry about separating them. Separating the seedlings just consists of detangling the roots before you put them into their own individual cups, and you can do that later once they've grown. I'll show you that, inshallah. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and continue filling up these cells, and then we're going to get on to the bigger cups. Seeds that are more than 2 centimeters long, such as beans. Here I have castor beans, squash, any type of squash. Here I have some black beauty squash, cucumber. These are thinner, but they're longer. These seeds are all bigger seeds. So these seeds can be planted directly into the cup. Make sure your cups have holes in them for drainage. And then make sure that you label them. Here I have winter squash, so I'm going to go ahead and write it directly onto the cup. I'm planting 2 different squashes, as you just seen. So this one is winter squash, so I'll make sure I put that on there and the date as well. Now, when you're planting these, typically these are pretty big, so you want to plant them the same size as they are deep. And remember, cover them up in the soil that you put on top, because the dirt can have germs in it, and it does, and the shoots need to grow just like that. Then water, and you're done. We're going to do the same thing for all of these plants. So I'm going to plant these nasturtiums, I guess you call them. And the way you plant these is slightly different. So first, you pour them out into the cup, and this is what the seeds look like. And then you let them soak overnight. Now, when you do that, it loosens up this really hard shell on this one. Like, this is already loose, you can see. On the inside, that's what you're looking at. That's what you want to break out and plant, because this little shell is going to inhibit growth rate. It's going to have the shell, the seed itself, which is this little thingy here, it has to break through this in order to grow. So remember, with these plants, soak them 24 hours, break them open, and do the same thing. Put them as deep in the soil as they are wide, or as they are big. You know, and just place it down, water, and
no ordinary wildly knows what the fuck your heart knows. Who alone? No ordinary wildly knows what the fuck your heart knows. Who alone? The hikmah of Allah in hand. Hassan wa Hussein, Hassan wa